What if one of the most ordinary snacks in your kitchen could actually play a role in helping you maintain muscle after 60? You may already eat it without giving it a second thought. But there's a reason this small snack is worth looking at more closely. Its nutrients can contribute to a diet that supports muscle health as you get older. And once you see what's actually inside it, and what those nutrients can and cannot do, you may look at this everyday snack a little differently. As you get older, maintaining muscle becomes less about finding one perfect food and more about consistently giving your body what it needs. That includes enough protein. It includes regular movement. And it includes nutrients that help support normal muscle function. But there's one everyday food that often gets overlooked because it seems almost too ordinary to matter. Almonds. You may already have them in your kitchen. You may eat a few with breakfast, grab a handful during the afternoon, or keep them around simply because they're convenient. But when you're over 60, the more useful question isn't simply, are almonds healthy? It's, what can almonds actually contribute to a diet designed to support muscle as you age? Because there's an important distinction here. Almonds are not a muscle-building shortcut. They aren't a replacement for resistance exercise. And eating a handful of them won't suddenly reverse age-related muscle loss. But they do provide several nutrients that can fit into a muscle-supportive eating pattern. And that matters because your body doesn't build or maintain muscle from one meal. It responds to what you consistently provide and what you consistently ask it to do. That means your daily food choices can either support that bigger picture or simply become calories you eat without much thought. So instead of asking whether almonds are a muscle food, there's a better question. What do they actually bring to the table? Because once you look beyond the label of healthy snack, you start to see why this small food may have a useful place in a diet focused on maintaining strength after 60. And there's one nutrient in particular that deserves a closer look. Maintaining muscle after 60 requires more than simply eating less or choosing foods because they sound healthy. Your body still needs building blocks for tissue maintenance. It needs energy. It needs adequate protein, and it needs a range of vitamins and minerals that support normal physiological function. That's where almonds become interesting. Not because they contain some secret ingredient that stops aging. They don't. Their value comes from the combination of nutrients they provide in a relatively small serving. An ounce of almonds provides protein, magnesium, fiber, vitamin E, and mostly unsaturated fats. None of those nutrients works alone. And that's important because it keeps us away from the idea that one food can solve a complex problem. Your muscles respond to your overall diet, your activity level, your recovery, and the demands you place on them. So almonds should be thought of as one piece of that larger pattern, not the entire strategy. There's also another reason this becomes more relevant with age. When you're younger, you may be able to get away with inconsistent meals, long periods of inactivity, or paying little attention to recovery. Over time, those habits can become more important. Your goal after 60 isn't simply to eat healthy. It's to make everyday choices that support the things you want your body to keep doing: walking, climbing stairs, carrying groceries, getting out of a chair, and staying independent. And that brings us to the part most people overlook. What is actually inside an almond that could make it useful in this bigger picture? That's where the story gets more specific. The snack is almonds. But before you grab a handful, there's something important to understand. Almonds aren't valuable for muscle health because they're somehow different from every other nutritious food. They're useful because of the combination of nutrients they provide and because they can be an easy part of a consistent eating pattern. Start with protein. A 1-ounce serving of almonds provides roughly 6 grams of protein. That's meaningful, but it's also important to keep the number in perspective. Almonds are not one of the most protein-dense foods you can choose. A serving of Greek yogurt, eggs, fish, poultry, or other protein-rich foods can provide substantially more. So why mention the protein at all? Because maintaining muscle after 60 means paying attention to your total protein intake across the day, not searching for one food to do the entire job. Almonds can contribute some protein while also bringing other nutrients along with it. And that combination is part of what makes them practical. but protein is only the beginning. Almonds also provide magnesium, a mineral involved in normal muscle and nerve function, along with vitamin E, fiber, and unsaturated fats. That doesn't mean eating almonds will automatically make your muscles stronger. It means they can contribute useful nutrients to a diet that already has the fundamentals in place. And this is where the story becomes more interesting. Because if you're over 60 and trying to maintain muscle, what you eat matters, but what your muscles are being asked to do matters too. That brings us to the nutrient that gets a lot of attention in conversations about muscle and what it can realistically do. Magnesium is one of the nutrients found in almonds that deserves attention. Your body uses magnesium in hundreds of biochemical reactions, including processes involved in normal muscle and nerve function. But that doesn't mean more magnesium automatically means more muscle. That distinction matters. If your diet is already providing enough magnesium, simply adding more almonds isn't going to create a dramatic muscle-building effect. The useful point is that magnesium is part of the normal machinery your body uses every day. Almonds also provide vitamin E, fiber, and unsaturated fats. Together, these nutrients help explain why almonds can fit into a balanced diet, but they still don't make almonds a complete muscle strategy. And this is where nutrition connects to something much bigger. Think about what happens when you eat a meal. The nutrients provide raw materials and energy, but your muscles also need a reason to adapt. That reason comes from what you do with your body. If you spend most of the day sitting and rarely challenge your muscles, simply improving your snack choices won't fully address the problem. Food provides support. Movement provides the signal. That's why resistance exercise becomes so important as you get older. When you repeatedly ask your muscles to produce force, through exercises such as squats, rows, presses, or other appropriate resistance movements, you give your body a reason to maintain and adapt muscle tissue. So almonds can be part of the nutrition side of the equation, but they're not the signal itself. And that distinction changes how you should think about the entire snack. Because the real question is no longer, can almonds build my muscles? It becomes, can almonds contribute to the diet that supports the work my muscles are doing? That is a much more useful question. Imagine two people eating the same handful of almonds. One spends most of the day sitting. The other regularly walks, climbs stairs, and performs resistance exercises. The almonds are the same, but the context around them is completely different. That's because muscle health isn't determined by food alone. Your muscles respond to the demands placed on them. And after 60, that becomes especially important. You don't need to turn every workout into an exhausting session. You need to consistently give your muscles a reason to stay capable. That can mean getting up from a chair repeatedly, using resistance bands, lifting weights, doing controlled bodyweight exercises, or following a structured strength program appropriate for your abilities. The specific exercise can vary. The principle is simple. Your muscles need a reason to keep working. Now bring nutrition back into the picture. If you're regularly challenging your muscles, but your overall diet doesn't provide enough energy or protein, you may not be giving your body the nutritional support it needs. And if you eat well, but rarely challenge your muscles, nutrition alone cannot replace that physical stimulus. That's why the most useful way to think about almonds is not as a muscle-building food. Think of them as one small part of a larger system. Your meals provide nutrients. Your muscles receive a training signal. Your body gets time to recover, and the process repeats. That's the bigger picture. And it also explains why simply adding almonds to an otherwise poor routine probably won't change very much. The snack can support the strategy. It is not the strategy. So if almonds are going to have a useful place in your routine, the next question becomes much more practical. How much should you actually eat? This is where portion size starts to matter, because a food can be nutritious and still be easy to overeat. Almonds are energy dense, which means a small amount provides a meaningful number of calories. So the goal isn't to keep eating them simply because they're healthy. The goal is to use them intentionally. A practical starting point is around 1 ounce, which is roughly a small handful. That gives you the nutrients we've been discussing without turning the snack into a large portion of your daily energy intake. And you don't necessarily need to eat almonds at one specific time of day. Breakfast can work. A mid-afternoon snack can work. You can also include them alongside another meal. What matters more is how they fit into your overall eating pattern. And there's another useful strategy. Because almonds provide some protein, but not a huge amount for their calorie content, you can pair them with a more protein-rich food. For example, a small serving of plain Greek yogurt with some almonds can provide a different nutritional combination than almonds alone. The point isn't to create a perfect muscle snack. It's to build meals and snacks that make it easier to meet your overall nutritional needs. And remember the other half of the equation. If you're trying to maintain muscle after 60, don't let a healthy snack become a substitute for movement. Walk. Get up regularly. Challenge your muscles. Perform resistance exercise appropriate for your ability. Then give your body the nutrition and recovery it needs. That combination is much more powerful than focusing on any single food. And before you decide that almonds are either a miracle food or completely overrated, there's one more thing worth considering. What happens when you use them consistently as part of the bigger picture? Consistency is where a small food choice can become more useful. Not because eating almonds every day creates some special effect. It's because repeated choices shape your overall diet. If a small serving of almonds helps you choose a more satisfying snack instead of something heavily processed, that could be useful. If pairing them with a protein-rich food helps you build a more balanced snack, that could be useful too. The benefit comes from the pattern, not from the almond itself. And this is also where portion awareness matters. A small handful is very different from eating several handfuls without noticing. If you want a visual reference, think about roughly 1 ounce or about 23 almonds. You don't have to count every almond forever. The goal is simply to develop a sense of what a reasonable serving looks like. And remember, your ideal portion depends on your overall calorie needs, activity level, and the rest of your diet. There is no magic number that applies perfectly to everyone. That same principle applies to timing. You don't need to eat almonds immediately before or after exercise for them to work. Your total diet matters more than finding a perfect minute on the clock. What matters is whether the food helps you consistently meet your nutritional needs. And if muscle maintenance is your priority, protein deserves particular attention. Almonds can contribute protein, but they're better viewed as a supporting food rather than your main protein source. That's why combining different foods can be more useful than relying heavily on one. A protein-rich meal, a serving of vegetables or fruit, whole foods that provide fiber and micronutrients, and a reasonable amount of healthy fats. That is what a sustainable eating pattern starts to look like. And once you combine that with regular resistance exercise, the role of a simple snack becomes much clearer. So, can almonds support muscle health after 60? Yes, but probably not for the reason you first imagined. They aren't a magic muscle-building food. They're simply one practical option that can contribute protein, magnesium, healthy fats, fiber, vitamin E, and other nutrients to an overall balanced diet. And that bigger picture matters much more than the snack itself. If you're trying to maintain muscle as you age, think beyond one food. Make sure your diet provides enough overall protein. Stay physically active. Include resistance exercise that challenges your muscles appropriately. Give yourself enough time to recover. And make everyday food choices that you can realistically maintain. That's where a small handful of almonds can fit. Not as a replacement for exercise. Not as a treatment for age-related muscle loss. And not as a shortcut. Simply as one nutritious food that can support the larger habits that matter. Because maintaining muscle after 60 isn't about finding one perfect ingredient. It's about giving your body the right combination of nutrition, movement, and consistency again and again. And that may be the most useful way to think about almonds. The snack matters, but the habits around it matter more.